Hey guys, welcome back to the rocket tutorial series. This is part 10. We've come a long way, and if you've been following along, thank you very much. I really appreciate you consuming this content. I hope it's been helpful. And please, if you could provide any feedback, I'd really appreciate it. I'd love to hear what I'm doing well and what I'm not doing well, and see how I can improve. So leave me comments. Subscribe, or get in touch with me however you can. I have my email address in the About section of the YouTube channel. Okay, well, let's get on to it. We're going to cover updating the rocket so that it doesn't take damage on shooting. There was a little oversight from the last tutorial video. Then we're going to create a LaserShot script, which will destroy the laser on trigger, and it will also wrap the laser around the screen, kind of like in the original Asteroids. We're going to update Asteroids to move in when they switch sides of the screen. So right now, if they're really close to the edge, they'll flip back and forth between either side of the screen, top or bottom. So we're going to just adjust that so they move out of the screen just a little more, or they flip sides just a little farther out of the screen space. We're going to update the asteroids to move when we start the game. We're going to update the Asteroid Manager to fire a level finished action. So when all the asteroids have been destroyed, it's going to fire a level finished action. We're going to update the rocket to fire death action. So if the rocket loses all its health, it's going to fire off an action that the Rocket Game Manager will hook into. Then we are going to update the Game Manager to restart the rocket when it dies. We'll also update the Game Manager to display a restart window when you finish destroying or play next level, whatever. But just to display a dialogue after we finish destroying all the asteroids. And then we'll update the pause button to work properly. I have gone ahead and changed the pause image to an icon. And we will also update the rocket input to account for right now it's in the update loop, which is not a fixed time interval. What that means is that a different computer could play the update at different speeds, so it won't be equivalent on other computers. And then even on your computer, if your computer's slowing down for some reason, maybe you have a bunch of apps open, the rocket could move at a different speed. Whereas everything that's in the physics system, so the asteroids, for example, will move at a fixed update. So you'll see a difference in your rocket speed versus your asteroids over different configurations of computers and over different environments on your computer. And also we'll address some shooting issues when you hit the pause button. And let me just go ahead and give you a little playthrough tour of just playing with all these updates, and then we can get into implementing them. I'll go ahead and maximize on play, and we'll go through this. So you can see I've already lost a lot of health here. I'm down to 17. Just gonna take on more damage. 3, and I'm almost done. Let's see what happened. Boom, I just died, and I reappeared right here. Now we could play some animations to appear over here after kind of like an explosion, and maybe we blink in or something, but I'm not going to get into that right now. For now, you can just see that the rocket is re-instantiated back into the game. And we'll go over here and destroy this other rocket. Now, if you can see my firing, it goes off the screen and then reappears on the other side. It also vanishes after a certain amount of time. Now we have this level completed dialog screen that comes up, and we have a play again button. So I'm going to go ahead and hit play again. You can see all the asteroids were reinstantiated. Really what we did here was just a scene restart or reload. Oop, And that's about it. So there's a lot of little things here. As I said, the asteroid's not flipping back and forth between different screens. The lasers firing off and going between, going around the screen. So now before, when you hit play and pause, on play you would get an laser firing. You can see we still have a laser firing on pause, which is another thing we can address in another tutorial. But so you can see that we've hooked up Asteroids with the Game Manager. We've hooked up the rocket with the Game Manager, so now we have a little bit closer of a completed game. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. All right, so let's update our rocket so that we don't take damage on shooting. You can see here, every time I shoot, I'm losing 1 health point. So we're going to address this by going to the 3D part of the hierarchy, find our rocket, select that, and double click on our player controller script. Now, just real quick tip is that we can go through our script using the drop down, find the function you want or the method you want, and just select it. And you can find methods and properties, variables, and select them, and it'll take you right to them. So we're going to the onTriggerEnter method here, and what we're going to do is add a quick check to see if the thing that's colliding with us has a certain tag. Now in Unity, let me just go back to Unity real quick. Side rant. In Unity, you have this tag slot for every object. So it's up here at the top, right underneath the name in the inspector window. And you can tag things however you want. And in general, you should always tag your player with the player tag. But you can tag enemies, so things you can destroy, with an enemy tag, or you can make your own tags. So if you want to have your enemy tag, or a destructible tag, or pickup tag, you can do that. And we're going to create a tag in a second here. So let's get back to the player controller script, and I'm just going to say if other, so what's coming in right now is this other collider component, but we're going to get the game object from other. Pardon me. And then we're going to get the tag of that game component, and we will see if it equals. And we'll call it laser for the purposes of this, and we're going to return out. So that means if something colliding with us that's triggered our collider is called laser, then we're just not going to do anything else beyond this point. So all of this won't happen. It's just going to return out. So let's go ahead and find our laser, which we have a prefab for our laser. So we can edit it in the prefab. So we'll want to go ahead and open our prefab. We're going to go to the tag drop-down menu, and we're going to add a tag. And you can see here it has one tag already, tag 0, which is shootable. We're going to add a new one by hitting that plus sign and type in laser. And then we will go back to our LaserShot and we will assign it. So now you should be able to fire without losing any health. That should be it, really. Yep, there we go. Okay. So once again, we just added a new tag to the laser prefab, which is being instantiated every time we hit that button to shoot. And then on the rocket, we just added a check to see if the thing we are colliding with has that tag. And if so, we just return out of the onTriggerEnter method. And that's it for that. All right, the next thing we're going to do, which is a little more complicated, is that we are going to add a component to our LaserShot. So So this component is going to manage the life cycle of our laser. Every time you hit the fire button, a laser gets instantiated and fires off in a certain direction, the direction your ship is facing. Right now, if you fire, the laser will go right through everything, no matter what it collides with. It keeps going. I don't know if you saw that. There you go. It keeps going, and in fact, not only does it keep going, but it never dies. So it's over here somewhere in screen space. I mean in world space, just flying constantly. You can see the XY values changing. But it never dies. That means that you can create an infinite number of lasers. We do not want that. So once again, we're going to open up our laser prefab. We'll open it up, and we will create a new script in here. We're going to call it LaserShot, and we'll add this to our prefab. So I'm just going to drag it in here. I want to put it near the top. There we go. So I'll collapse all these other things just so we can see it. Okay, and this created our template script here. Now there's a couple of things that we want to do. So a concept I did not mention before is the fixed update concept. So you have update and you have fixed update. And I mentioned this in the intro of this tutorial, but we didn't do this previously when we were creating our rocket. And really, this is something you need to pay a lot of attention to. If you are experiencing things happening at different speeds than you expect them to, and changing randomly based on what you're doing with your computer, then you likely have things updating in an update loop and not a fixed update loop. So the fixed update loop makes sure to wait a certain amount of time before every fixed update loop iteration. So that means it doesn't run as fast as it possibly can. It means it runs at a fixed update, and that will keep your game consistent. So I'm going to go ahead and add a fixed update. So I just start typing that, hit tab, and there we go. Now one of the things I want to do here, and actually let me remove this start as well. One of the things I want to do is I want our laser to have a lifetime. So I'm going to give it a lifetime variable here, or property. And right now I'm setting it to 1. And so we'll just say this is the life in seconds for this laser shot. So that means after 1 second, this thing should destroy itself. So I'm going to, I call that list time, I'm not sure why, lifetime. So I'm going to subtract from the current lifetime time.delta time. Now this delta time is the amount of time that passed between this frame and the last frame. And a frame is each CPU cycle. So each iteration of this update, it's going to subtract however much time it took to go from the last update to this update. And so lifetime, if it's 1 second and it took, 0.05 of a second to do a fixed update, then it'll be, 0.95 seconds left. So we'll just check if lifetime is less than 0, because we'll get to a point where lifetime will be less than 0 eventually, unless your game is paused. Game object. We're going to destroy our game object. So that will just destroy this laser if its life expires. Destroy laser when life expires. And I think we should be able to see this now in the editor. Let's go ahead and follow the life of one laser shot. You know what? I'm going to turn off maximize on play here, and we'll see it. still in the prefab. Let's get out of the prefab there. So right now lasers are being instantiated at the root level. So we should just see it pop up here. And there it goes, it disappears. And if we go ahead and just look at our 3D scene here on the right, kind of squished. Now, you can't see it because the canvas is overlapping. But if I turn this way, for example, shoot around, yeah, then you can kind of see it there. It goes and it disappears before it gets too far. There we go. All right, so that's one thing that's addressed. Another thing, I want it to wrap around the screen. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's go back to our LaserShot script. And now that we have this fixed update, we can do that in here as well. So again, this is very much like all of the other wraparound code that we have. We can actually grab the code from something else if we want. So we're in the player controller that has some wraparound. I'm going to go ahead and find my update script, and this wraparound code right here actually is not what we want because it has some other code in it. So let's go to the Asteroid controller. This one should have, here we go, this is a lot more succinct. This one has our vector 3 screen position, camera 2 world viewpoint. So this is just taking the camera. It's taking our 3D object and figuring out where it fits on our screen space in 2D. Even though it returns a vector 3, it actually gives us a 2D position on the screen space, and then we just use that to test. And actually there's a quick update I want to do here. So I don't know if you've noticed this while playing around. If an asteroid hits an edge, you know what, I'll fix that in a second. We'll get back to that. But essentially if an asteroid hits an edge, it can flip between one side or the other quickly, as I mentioned earlier. So I'll go ahead and copy this into our LaserShot. I'm going to put it right here under the flip sides. And now we don't have a reference to cam, so let's go ahead and add that camera. And we'll say cam equals camera.main. Now we have a reference to camera. And we're flipping between sides. Now, I don't know if this will happen with a laser, so I'm not going to worry about it right now. But maybe we might come back to this code and update it. So we should see our shot wrap around now. Let's go ahead and we'll move up a little bit and we will shoot. You can see it's not wrapping around. And why isn't it wrapping around? Okay, so just a quick update. Let's add our start back in here. And we're going to assign camera in our start. Camera.main, because it's not finding it. Because you can't assign it here outside of a method. It has to be part of the lifecycle event. So there, the problem was, and I just realized this, looking at our console, I was getting this null reference error. So the camera, which is here in cam and defined up here, was not being assigned properly. So now let's go ahead and play this. There you go. So now you can hit things on the other sides of the world. Okay. Last thing for the lasers, let's go ahead and add an onTriggerEnter method. And what we're going to do here is we're just going to make sure that if this were to collide with the player, it wouldn't do anything, even though the player is set to not do anything. What happens here is that we will want this to disappear once it hits an object. So if I hit an asteroid, it should explode the asteroid and then just disappear. If it accidentally hits the player ship, I'm just going to ignore it. So let's first do the destroy on collide. So I'm going to just have destroy, game object. And before we do that, I'm going to do something similar to what we did in the rocket. If other game object dot tag equals player, then return. Okay, so just a quick recap. If we hit the player for some reason, like if it wraps around and hits the player, it will do nothing. Otherwise, if it hits something else, it'll destroy itself. Let's maximize this on play, and let's test this. Okay, looks like it disappeared. Okay. Now, I don't think it lives long enough to hit me, so I can't really test that right now. But if you were to up the lifetime of this LaserShot, then you could test and see what happens. It should just go right through you. All right, I think that solves that. Okay, this next one is an update for the asteroids, and I think we're going to apply this to the laser script as well. Ideally, before we had created the laser script, we would have done this, but we'll do this right now with the asteroid script, and then we'll just copy it into the laser script. So I'm going to go into an asteroid, any asteroid really. You can also do this down here through project and grab the asteroid controller, but I'll just grab this asteroid component. And here in the update for the asteroid, I am going to update the amount or the position we're going to check in screen space before we swap something from one side to another. So right now I'm saying if it's less than 0, I'll just say if it's less than 0.05. So if it goes off the screen a little bit, then move it back to 1. And this basically solves an issue where if it gets really close to the edge, it doesn't flip back and forth between the two positions. So here it's saying if it doesn't get too close to point or to 0, it's a little bit over 0, then move it over to 1. And then we'll do the same thing with here with the right side, or the 1 values. If it's greater than 1.05, here we go. I'll add the F just to be consistent. It just says this is a float value. And then, like I said, we can copy this into our laser component here. So I'm just going to copy and paste it right over it. And we should be able to see objects kind of float off the screen a little bit before they flip sides. And you can mess with this to see what a really good setting is. Get something off the screen. All right, here's an object that's about to float away. So it goes off, and then it just disappeared. Yeah, okay, we have an issue with the script. So let's just take a look at our asteroid script. So really, we want this to be -5, -0.05, and that should solve it. What's happening is that it's checking for positive 0.05 and not negative. All right, so let's do this one more time. This guy's going, that guy's going. So it went off the screen completely, and then it popped onto the bottom. So we should never see any like crazy flipping, because it'll always happen off screen somewhere. Ooh, someone wants to hit me. All right, there we go. Okay, so now we're going to get into the Asteroid Manager. I'm going to go ahead and click on the Asteroid Manager. We're going to get into it reporting that all the asteroids are destroyed. So as we've done in previous tutorials, we've added this thing called an action, public action. And we'll just say on all asteroids destroyed. And now this basically will tell anybody who's hooked in to fire off a method if all asteroids are destroyed. And we stubbed in down here some code for what to do when our asteroids are destroyed. And this basically, we're going to assume it's the level is completed. All asteroids destroyed. We'll just check for null. If there is someone subscribed, we will invoke this method. And this is all we really have to do here, but we will need someone to subscribe to this. So we'll get into that in a sec. So we're going to go ahead and subscribe to that through the Rocket Game Manager. And the way we'll do that is we'll just select the Rocket Game Manager, go into its component, and up in the start, we will want to just add, here we go. We're going to want to add an Asteroid Manager dot on, I'm sorry, yeah, no, dot on, here's the problem, we're calling the class and not our instance. Asteroid Manager, we do have a reference to it, right? We do not have a reference to it. So first we need to add a reference to our Asteroid Manager. And, you know, I'm going to try and organize this area up here a little bit. So I'll just start down here with the asteroid. First I'm going to move all private, and I'll mark this as private as well. But I will start an asteroid section here. I'm going to call it Asteroid Manager. Now I'm using this directive with the header tag and just adding Asteroid Manager. This is going to give me a heading in the inspector, and I'll also add some space so that it's separated from the other elements. I'm going to add a serialized field, Asteroid Manager, Asteroid Manager. So now I'll be able to hook into the Asteroid Manager down here with the instance that we have up there. We just need to remember to assign it in the editor. So let's see, on level complete. So we're just subscribing to this all asteroids destroyed and assigning it to this on level complete method, which we will go ahead and just let Visual Studio create a method for us. Just real quick, I'm going to go up here and just add another header. I'm going to call this Rocket Elements. Oops. And I don't need to give it space. I'll just do that. The pause button is not a rocket element. So what is the pause button? It's a UI element. We just say pause. And we'll give this space as well. And we'll take a look at this in a second. Okay, pause. Soundtrack is probably better off somewhere else. So we can just do, again, header, audio, elements, and space, frontier. There we go. Okay. So what's happening back down here is that on level complete, we are doing nothing right now, but let's do something. So I'm going to go up here and add a new using statement, and what we're going to do is reload this scene by adding the scene management namespace. We're going to come down here, and we are just going to do scene manager.load scene, and we will load main. So this will essentially just load the scene for us without doing anything else. So if we destroy all of these asteroids, then it should just pop us right back into the scene. Now let's take a look over here in the inspector. All those updates, you can see we have headings and we have space between these sections. Okay, let's give this a playthrough, destroy all of these asteroids. You know what, before I do that, I'm going to just delete most of the asteroids. Make this quicker. Go to the shot I am. Reports the last asteroid has been destroyed and nothing has happened. Let's get out of our maximize screen. Let's have a look here. Well, we forgot to assign the Asteroid Manager to the Rocket Manager, so let's go ahead and assign that. And let's actually just delete more of these asteroids. Okay, so now we have one. And it just reloaded the scene. There you go. See the asteroid pop right back up in the top right, and a rocket pop right back up there. And you'll see that better, I think, if I move. Yeah, rocket. There you go. All right. So we have level complete done. All right, so in the same vein as the Asteroid Manager, we're going to update the rocket controller. I'm just going to go to the rocket, load up the rocket controller script, and I'm going to add a new action up here. Public action on rocket exploded. So anytime the rocket gets destroyed, the health goes down to 0. The rocket destroys. We're going to just send off an event that somebody can subscribe to, and we'll let that somebody do something with us. So on rocket exploded, null check invoke, and I'm putting this down here in the onTriggerEnter under the health 0 check. So every time something enters us and sets off the trigger, we subtract some health, and then if our health is 0, we call this rocket exploded action, and we also destroy ourselves. So we're going to need someone to subscribe to this and do something based on that. So the logical person to subscribe will be the Rocket Game Manager. It already has a reference to us, or to the rocket, the player controller in the rocket, and we can add a new method here, rocket dot on rocket exploded plus on rocket. We could do handle rocket exploded or on level complete. I mean, it's just a matter of phrasing. Certainly refactoring the naming so it makes sense to you is important. So now we have this new method down here. So we're going to want to do something here so that we can deal with the rocket exploding. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually call a new method, make new rocket. And this method, I'm going to let Visual Studio Auto generate that. This method is going to instantiate a rocket. So we can say instantiate and rocket prefab. So I'm going to want a reference to a rocket prefab, and I will also want a start position. This could be, I'll bring it in as a transform, and I will also want the start position dot rotation. And then we'll want to get its rocket or player controller component and assign it back to the rocket, because that's what we're using up here. We're using player controller to update health and hook into everything. So you can see there's some things that we need to figure out here. So rocket prefab, let's go up to our UI elements, or I'm sorry, our rocket elements up here, and we'll add a new serialized field. And this one is going to be a game object, and we're going to call it rocket prefab. And that should solve that. And then we'll also need a start position. And this is going to be a transform again. Serialize field. It's going to be a transform. And we're going to call it start position. So this will be a game object that just has a position and rotation. And one way to make that position, I want it basically to be where the rocket starts. So I'm going to go ahead and add a new empty game object, and I'll stick it right under the rocket. Stick it right under the rocket real quick. And we're going to reset everything here. Reset. And then I'm going to take it out of the rocket. And I will call it start position. And now it has all of the rotation and position elements of the rocket. So you can see that they both match. So let's go up to our rocket manager. We'll drag this into the start position. And then for our rocket prefab, we're going to come down to our prefabs folder. And we don't have a rocket in here. So I'm going to drag the prefab in here. I'm going to make it an original prefab. And then I will drag this back up into this slot. So now the Rocket Game Manager should know to reinstantiate a rocket, but we are missing some things. So we look back at our script. You can see originally when we first start, there are two actions we're hooking into. So we'll want to hook into those actions. And we will also want to update our health because our game manager manages the visual aspect of our health. So we're going to go ahead and say rocket.on rocket exploded equals handle rocket exploded rocket.on health updated plus equals is a good candidate for renaming. So let's rename this guy Control R, and let's just add on rocket health updated. Oops. Control R. And let's go to the beginning on rocket health updated. And we didn't do that right. So let's right click, rename. Go over there on rocket health updated. There we go. So that updated it up here as well. We could say handle if we want to stay with the other one. Do handle. Rocket health updated. Okay, and the last thing we want to do is just update the rocket health. Rocket health. Let's see how we're updating the rocket health. So anytime handle rocket health updated goes in here and says, okay, so we're just gonna call this method handle rocket updated, and we'll send it the rocket.health. Rocket.health. I see. So we need to go back to the rocket. We'll find our rocket health. Player controller, go all the way to the top, rocket health. Where are you? Here you are. Health. And we're going to change this from a serialized field to a public field. And that allows us to get our health from another script. Okay, so now we're fine. Okay, so let's test this. So we're not going to be able to die here, I don't think. Okay. Let's see. No, we can't die here. Let's just, maybe we can. Boom, there we go. So we were instantiated, pointing the right way. We can maybe duplicate this a couple times and just spread it out. Then be able to test this a little better. Test it one more time. Go over here. Boom. Okay. Boom. There we go. Okay, so that's working pretty well. Okay, now let's just update our pause menu to start in the right state. Let's go to our Rocket Game Manager script and handle pause pressed method. Again, you can just drag or click on the drop down, select your method, and it pops you right there. So game paused equals the opposite of game paused. And then if not game paused, we'll set the time to 0. Let's see if that's right. No, we want if game is paused, then we want to set the time to 0. Otherwise, we want to set it to 1. And that should be pretty much all we need to do to have pause work properly. So before, every time I hit pause, it would go through and cycle once. Let's try that one more time. Let's turn off maximize. Yeah, so that looks like it's working properly. Okay, another thing we want to handle is the rocket moving at different speeds. If you were doing anything in the background that was taxing your computer and you tried to play this game, you would notice the rocket would slow down or speed up depending on what you were doing. So again, as I mentioned before, the fixed update is the place where you would do that. Right now, everything is happening in the update loop. And there's a lot happening here. But we will want to have a fixed update as well. I'm going to collapse this and just add a fixed update. Now you can have 2 updates in a component. And you can also have a late update, which means it's going to update after everything else updates. But in this case, we're going to do a fixed update, and we're going to move almost everything down there. Why don't we start with moving everything down, and then we'll pull things back as we need them. So there are some things that you do not want in the fixed update. So I'm going to go ahead and Control-C that, and then Control-V. And I just pasted everything here into the fixed update. So there are a couple things you don't want in the fixed update. Fire, for example, firing off lasers. And let me show you what happens if you have the firing happening in the fixed update. I'm just going to go ahead and take a couple shots here. Well, this happens to work, but if you wanted to go faster, this will only let you go a certain speed. So if we move firing into our update, now I can hit Alt up and just move firing all the way back up. Now you may or may not want this behavior, but I thought it was more interesting having the ability to kind of mash your keys as fast as you possibly want. And you can shoot you can shoot as many lasers as you can press as long as it's updated. It's in sync with the normal update. What else? What else? Here's another thing. Probably want the thrust. Yeah, so if I turn on the sound, let's go ahead and play. So we're going to want to go ahead and move the sound, which happens here in this get key down. I'm going to Alt up arrow that. And we also want the sound stop to happen in normal update. Alt up arrow that. So now we have firing, we have the sound starting and stopping. And one thing we're going to want to add to both of these, which is a solve for firing and, I mean, for pausing basically. We want to check if we're paused. If game paused, then we're going to return out of this thing. So we don't want to shoot. And actually, we're going to copy that. Just Control C. And come down here and Control V. Okay, I think that solves the ship moving at an upward speed or being dynamic. Yeah, so that feels pretty good. So I think that's it for the player update. And that also solves this game pause issue. Okay, so the last thing we're going to do here is we're going to add some elements in the UI canvas. And I'm going to make these elements sit underneath everything else. We're going to have to create a script for them. But I'll call this, what am I going to call this? Level complete. Level complete. Level complete UI. And in here, well, let's set this real quick. I'm just going to put it right there. I'm going to make it maybe 300 by 200. And I'll make it a grayish color. Make it dark black color. Let's go with gray. Make it semi-transparent. And under this, I'm going to add some Text Mesh Pro text. And I'll just say level completed. And we'll go ahead and make it bold. We'll drop down the size a little bit so it can live in there. Also going to center it. Although maybe I'll start this one at the top and I'll just I'll bump it down maybe 50 pixels. Let's bump it down 25 pixels. Okay, and then we're also going to add a button. Actually, I'm going to add a Text Mesh Pro button. So there are two kinds of buttons there, a normal button and a Text Mesh Pro button. And we'll just say, I don't know, play again. Make it all caps, play again. And we'll bump this down maybe to 16. Not the text. The whole button. Just down 25. Okay, so this is going to let the player restart. And I mean, this is just a stubbed in element here. Clearly you want some game design, some visual design work on this, a treatment that could fit in line with the rest of the game. But for now, we're just going to stub this in. So we've got a button here. We're going to hook it into the Rocket Game Manager. When all of the asteroids are deleted, we will want to press this button to restart, and we'll want this to pop up. So I'm going to go ahead and hide this by default. Just save that right there. We're going to add a slot in the Rocket Game Manager. Up here under one of these things, we'll add a new header. Call this level complete UI. And we'll add some space, 10. And now we're going to add some serialized fields. Serialized field, we will say level complete UI. Follow the pattern we've been using. And this is a game object. And then we're going to add a serialized field. And this one will be a button. Restart. Okay, so we've got level complete, restart level button. Level complete will happen when we hit this. We're going to hit Control and click on that. Instead of reloading the scene, we're going to say level complete UI dot set active to true. Now that's just going to turn on our level complete UI. Now we need a new event to hook into here. So we're going to say, let's see, we called it restart level button dot on click dot add listener, and we will handle restart level button or restart level clicked. Like that. And we'll come back here, control period. Enter, and we've got this guy here. And here we're going to move our scene reload code, and that should be it. So now when you've destroyed all the asteroids, it's going to turn on that level complete UI. And then when you hit the button to restart level, it'll reload the level. Let's have a look. Come in here, we'll destroy all these guys. Yeah, there's no concept of lives yet, so I could just crash into everything here. Okay, I'm getting a null reference error. And that is because I haven't assigned our level complete UI to our Rocket Game Manager. Let's go over here, we'll assign that. We'll drop the button in as well. And we'll hit play and test this one more time. Let's just destroy everything. Needless destruction. Level completed. And we could have an animation that kind of slides us in or pops us up, scales it up, and maybe hides these things, and maybe we'll do that in a future tutorial. Now hit play again, we should pop up with everything loaded again. Yep, there we go. Okay. There we are. Cool. All right, the next thing, and probably the last one we're going to do here, is update the asteroids to move randomly. So I'm going to go ahead and open the asteroid controller script. Now you can see on generate new asteroids, we have some code in here to move randomly. And right now it finds a unit sphere. It moves us randomly within that unit sphere. And it multiplies that unit sphere by the local Y scale and positions that random position at our current position. And then we move randomly based on that. So I'm going to pull this code out and create a new method. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I want to unify all of the random movement code. So first void move random. Oops. Move random. And we're going to get a game object in here. Call it geo. So I'm going to get a vector 3. That we want the first position. We're going to do random dot, and this is the same code that's up above inside the unit sphere. We're going to add that to our transform. Transform.local scale.y. I'm sorry, we're going to add that to our transform position. So we have one position with one random position around our current asteroid. And then we will get our position1.z and set it to 0 because we don't want to move randomly in the z position. And then we're going to get a vector 3 random direction. And we'll set that equal to our incoming geo transform dot position minus our position 1. So we want to know the difference between our current position and the new random position we created. We're going to normalize that to bring it between 0 and 1. And we are going to multiply that by our random value, which is a static element in the random class, and then times speed. So we're going to want to expose our speed to the inspector, and then we'll get our game object, get component. We're going to get the rigid body, just like we have above, and we're going to set our velocity equal to rand direction. So again, we want to create a speed property that will be accessible above. So we'll go ahead and add that here. Serialize field, and we'll make it a float, and we'll make it speed, and we'll set it to 10 for now. Okay, so again, we did some of this, we just kind of rewrote it. We got a random position inside a unit sphere. We added our current position so that this random position is within our current position, and then we got a random direction from the incoming game object minus our random position here, and we normalized it and then multiplied it by a random value times speed, and we assign that to our velocity. So I'm going to just comment this out, Control KC. And in our start, I'm going to call this random, this move random, and set the game object as ourselves. So, you know what, maybe we don't need a game object. Well, let's just leave it like that for now. So now on start, these guys should start moving in a random direction. All right, so we've gone through and We have updated our asteroids to move randomly on start. We've updated our rocket to reinstantiate once you die, so once it explodes. We've updated our level to display a UI element and reload on clicking the start or restart button. We have updated our asteroids to go off screen before they flip sides. We have updated our laser to destroy when it hits something, to not take damage away from the rocket, and to wrap around the screen. We've updated our rocket to work in the fixed update so that it is always a constant speed and it's more predictable. What else have we done? We've done quite a lot. Okay, so we're going to leave it there for this episode, and when we come back to it, we'll continue working on kind of refining some of these elements and adding some new features to randomize the positions of the asteroids so that you can have different levels every time you start a new level. And we'll see if we can polish some of the UI elements like the pause button, the health, maybe hide these things, maybe animate stuff in and out. And yeah, I think we'll leave it there for now. All right, thank you for watching. Please subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.